All right, Sistas fans, this video is going to be solely dedicated to Calvin checking the sisters, to be completely honest. I mean, for me personally, it definitely seems like most of his animosity was directed specifically towards Danny, and for good reason. But the clip itself, or the scene of the episode, was pretty lengthy, so obviously and sadly I can't put it in the actual video due to copyright, but I wrote down pretty much everything that happened. I got one full page of notes here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about it. And just up front, you all know how I feel. I think Tyler, if he would have tweaked the writing just a little bit in regards to the scene where Calvin and Sabrina were in bed before he got up to leave, before both of their respective work days started. And, the scene where Calvin was the one who mentioned checking in with one another when it came to either one of them seeing each other or seeing someone else, due to the fact that they're not exclusive or in a committed relationship. But to have Calvin be the one to set those boundary rules, guidelines, whatever, but then break that within hours of setting the rules, saying I love you, Sabrina, and then putting his foot down saying we're not committed, I want to see whoever I want to, that really makes him look bad. But when I look at this scene standalone, because it's almost been a week since the episode aired, I just rewatched the scene, took all the notes, and I'm like, you know what, Calvin, despite the whole hypocrisy thing, you literally nailed the hammer right on the head. So before breaking this scene down, please take a moment, go ahead, hit the thumbs up button to show you like the video, hit subscribe to help me get closer to 190,000 subscribers. We're less than 2,000 people away. Hit the bell notification icon button and select all. That way you're notified whenever our kind of entertainment post content to the channel. And follow me on social media. Links are in the description below. So I know, aside from Fatima, the sisters are it can be very divisive amongst fans. You got fans of characters one week, then you got them hating them the next week. But I feel like this particular this particular scene demonstrated why Calvin is 1,000% right about Sabrina. And to be honest, he pretty much told her off, and rightfully so, in season 2. Or was it earlier in season 1? I can't remember. It's when he literally went over to her apartment and just laid into her about how, you're an adult. I told you everything there is to know about me in regards to who I am. Sure, I'm a bit, feminine and stuff like that, but I know who I am. But it's up to you if you're going to allow somebody else or other people's opinions of me to dictate how you see me as opposed to what I've told you about me. So, just to kind of do a quick recap, this is the ladies over at Sabrina's apartment, just to check in with her after the bank robbery situation. But at the time, they don't know about the Calvin stuff. So Sabrina walks in, she's all in a mood, and the girls are thinking it has to do with the robbery, and she's upset, rightfully so, being held at gunpoint. But no, Sabrina just says, I literally just came back from Maurice and Calvin's apartment and caught him with another woman. And then Danny's like, but didn't y'all just literally make up? Because remember, Danny came to Sabrina's apartment and saw her room was a mess and whatnot, and Sabrina told her what happened about her and Calvin. So in Danny's mind, it's like, yeah, literally this morning I saw you and you said, you made up, had sex. And then Sabrina's like, yeah, but I walked in on him coming out of his room naked with another woman. And Karen, I think, was the one that said, well, what did he say for himself? And Sabrina's like, well, I left before he could explain. And from there, the conversation shifts after she gets a few drinks in her and starts talking about Karen and Zach and the whole Aaron proposal. And I'm not going to do another video on this. I've talked about the Zach and Karen stuff enough for now. Until after the next episode, I'll talk about it. But something of note that I didn't really notice the first time was, we know that Karen would eventually kind of badger or prod Andy for answers about the whole Fatima and Zach thing. But when Danny and Sabrina are quote unquote teasing Karen, because despite her saying man, there's nothing happening between us. I'm focusing on Aaron, and I'm not getting married now, but Zach has nothing to do with me saying no, and whatever happens, that kind of thing. So when she's talking about it, she's not denying her feelings for Zach. She's not denying her feelings for Aaron, but you look at how Andy's eyes are shifting because she's nervous. It's kind of like, I know my girl tripping because she's talking about Zach now, but I know that it's most likely not going to happen because I know that Fatima and Zach are getting serious. So that's something I liked about the scene, because that leads to, I think it was Karen or Danny saying, Andy, why are you so quiet? And then, before she can get interrogated by Karen, knock on the door, she goes over and it's Calvin. So he nervously comes in saying, oh, I didn't know you had company. And then, it was Karen. There was like, oh no, or was it Dan? Look, you can correct me, tell me who it was, but oh no, we're not company, we're family. So he nervously comes in, and he basically is egged on by the women to explain himself, because he comes in and I guess you all know what happened. And Karen's like, no, just go ahead and tell us. And he tries to get Sabrina alone, but no, it's like, you can tell us, you don't have to tell her. And Danny's like, bring that sweet ass right on in here. And Karen's like, Karen, let's not do that. So he mentions the fact that, Sabrina caught me with one of my lady friends, and we were worked earlier, last night, this morning. Sabrina and I were working on, fixing things up, fixing up the whatever we have, basically fixing things between us. And then Danny's like, so you thought that would have involved bringing in yet another lady or another lady friend in order to fix things between you and Sabrina. So Calvin tries to explain that, look, Sabrina, I thought you understood that we aren't committed. And then from there, because Calvin addressed Sabrina specifically, Danny's like, no, you don't talk to her. And Andy's like, yeah, you talk to us. Well, then he goes on to say, well, if you all know this, basically everything that happened in regards to what Sabrina saw when she came over to the apartment, then you should know that Sabrina doesn't want to commit to me, because then Danny's like, it's the panties. And then Sabrina's like, poking her, slapping her just on the leg, like, just don't do it. And then she's like, oh yeah, it must be the vibrator too. Yeah, it's the vibrator too, girl. I mean, because she's talking like Sabrina. So yeah, it's the, girl, it's this vibrator too. That's what it is, Calvin. And then Andy tries to shush her like, Danny, you're doing too much. But then, she goes on about, yeah, that's right, you like the vibrator. And then Calvin, he's kind of fed up at this point. He's like, you know what, Danny? Yes, I do like the vibrator. Yeah, I do like it in my privacy. And then she decides to go on and says, oh yeah, were you and your lady friend enjoying the vibrator in your room? Was that what you're doing when Sabrina caught you? And then he basically goes on and says, you know what? F you, Danny. And then like Karen and Andy are like, wait, what? It's like, no, I'm tired of your bull. And Danny's like, oh, okay. So Calvin says, Sabrina, I've never lied to you. We're not committed, so I'm going to see whoever I'm going to see. And then he decides to say, if you're going to continue to let your... And then Andy's like, oh, you better wait now. And then Karen's like, no, let him say what he was going to say. Friends tell you who I am after I already told you who I am. It's on you. 1000% agree. And then he goes on to say, you know what? I'm about to go back to my apartment and cook dinner. I expect to see you there at 8. And then we can go ahead and talk like adults having a casual conversation without these. And then Andy and Karen like, oh yeah, watch yourself, you're pushing it. And then he goes on to say, mouthpieces speak for you. And I'm just like, bro, right on. So then he leaves. And then Andy's like, the audacity. Karen's like, oh, he's just going to leave out saying goodbye. And then Andy's like, mouthpieces, we are very quiet. And then from there, the ladies actually did like the fact that Calvin put his foot down. Danny was the first to speak up. Karen's like, mm-hmm. And Andy's like, yeah, that was kind of hot. And then they were like, so? Andy's like, so are you going to the dinner? And she's like, no. Sabrina's like, no. And that's the only thing she said. And that's after Calvin is left. So she says no. And then they're like, no. And Danny's like, that's bull. You going? And then Andy's like, hell, I'll go if you don't. And then Karen kind of stares at her. And then Andy's like, I was just playing. So I have to say, this scene, looking back, like I said, isolated from the whole hypocrisy of what Calvin said to Sabrina earlier that morning. This was on point, and it proves the flaws in Sabrina's character because, like Calvin said, despite him heavily being in the wrong, because I've said it 5 times already, he's the one that said, hey, let's check in with each other, yet he's the one that got caught breaking his own, boundaries between him and Sabrina. However, I wholeheartedly agree that this was a conversation that should have happened between Calvin and Sabrina, because I get it, the girls on Sabrina's side, especially after the whole robbery thing, she's been through a hectic day, so I'm not against her girls having her back. What I am against is the fact that they wouldn't let Sabrina stand up for herself. They wouldn't let Sabrina hear Calvin out. The fact that Sabrina didn't really contribute to the conversation. The only time she actively contributed was at the same time as, Karen and Andy, when Danny was just doing too much, because Danny was just ridiculing Calvin. Seriously, just bashing him. She did to Calvin exactly what she does to Preston, mocking him, his interest, what he likes, instead of having a full-on conversation. So you got Danny saying, no, you don't talk to her. And then Andy's like, right, you talk to us. But this had nothing to do with you. You did nothing to contribute to the conversation of what Calvin was saying. All you did was step on his words. All you did was drag him. So when he finally blew up, saying, fuck you, Danny, I mean, he could have said a lot worse. So you can say, you know what, you got one more time. I don't care. Calvin, you know what, Calvin, he just brought the place down. So that's what I liked. I mean, to be honest, yes, I've said it time and time again, and part of me still feels the same way, that I don't know why Calvin's still on the show, but this was definitely a highlight of the episode, if not his character in the series. And to be honest, I wish this scene itself went viral, like the whole I like my prostate tickled, or the screaming like a bitch when he got punched by Jacoby, the spin and fall. Like, those were viral moments for all the wrong reasons. But this scene here, from the acting as well as calling out all these girls, was on point. For real. Like, this just goes to show how ignorant they are to their own flaws. Like, for Andy to say, mouthpiece is the audacity, we are very quiet. Go back and watch the scene, or just re-listen to how I described this entire scene, and you'll see the only quiet person in this scene was Sabrina. And she was the only person within the women in this scene who should have been talking at all. See, this is why people, people say, men need to speak up and whatnot. I want men to approach me. Well, women, look at it from our perspective. We try to get you alone. When I say alone, I don't mean that in a creepy way, but, like at a club setting, even in school or whatnot, it's hard to kind of get one-on-one time with somebody to talk with them, especially when they're constantly surrounded by their friends, because in scenarios like this, that's why they always say, oh, the worst a girl can say is no. That's a damn lie, because imagine if you go up to approach a girl and you try to talk to her, and let's say that girl doesn't even get to talk because her friends just step up like, oh, what you talking to her for? Ew, look at you, your shoes. No, that shirt. No, get out of here. No. So this is exactly what happened to Calvin. And trust and believe, Calvin was, he was walking into the lion's den. And to be honest, for women who were curious, they really didn't give him a chance to speak. It's just crazy, because Sabrina literally said, well, Karen was the one that asked Sabrina before Calvin even showed up. So what did he have to say for himself? I left before he could explain anything. So to be completely honest, you only have Sabrina's side of the story. You don't even have the information that we're not committed, we're not in a relationship. So for you to walk into that lion's den, Calvin was basically a man on an episode of Maury during a DNA test episode. The woman gets to go first and explain her story or her side, and then the man walks in. He's instantly booed by the crowd. And then when the results are revealed, that let's say he's not the father, after denying it and giving all these explanations why, the crowd decides to go wild for him. That's the same thing that happened in this scene. Like, as soon as Calvin left and put his foot down, the very women who were ridiculing him and, you know, getting all up in their business, oh wow, that was actually, I see why you like him. Yeah, just hateful heifers. That's what they are. And this scene again just reiterates the fact that I'm glad Crystal's character for Team has blown up. I'm glad she got added to the opening credits and whatnot, but she can do far better than these women, because this group of cackling hyenas, as Zach said, called them before. Now, seriously, they're just awful. Like, I get it, they're down for their girl. Like, it would have been one thing, she like, you know, Calvin put hands on me, and then if Calvin showed up, oh yeah, you know what, protect your girl. I mean, they did the same thing to Gary after Andy was at her apartment and got the news from Leslie that Gary was a cheater and everything like that, with all these photos and everything. And the girls had Andy's back. Hell, I think Danny even pulled a knife on Gary. But in this situation, it's like, well, then again, Gary, those photos were proved to be not with women that weren't, I mean, oh yeah, you say those photos are me and other women, that's my sister-in-law. So it's one of those things where the women, they're quick to jump the gun. They don't get both sides of the story. So for me personally, Calvin, bravo. I still think you're hypocritical as hell, but Tyler Perry, if you just would have tweaked one or two lines from earlier with Sabrina and Calvin in bed, it would have been better. But even though I think that Sabrina isn't going to come to dinner because later in the episode it was already past 8 and Sabrina hadn't shown up, I feel like for me personally, if she doesn't show up to the dinner, Calvin should just move on. Just like with Preston and Danny, it's just like ridiculous. At what point is Sabrina going to think for herself? Because just like Danny going backward and forwards about the whole front, forward and backwards, or back and forth about the whole I need space, but I miss Preston. Why isn't he calling me? Yada yada yada. You're the one who wanted space. Sabrina, you're the one who didn't want a committed relationship, and it's hard to tell if that's because you just don't want to be tied down, or because you have this string of doubt in your mind about Calvin, despite him explaining himself and who he is to you like 20 times by now. So the women, yeah, they were right to be called out. But as soon as Calvin left, and the fact that Andy's like, mouthpieces were very quiet, that just shows me that they're not going to change. They're just not going to change. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I urge you, if you can find the episode online or on a BET app or whatever, go back and just watch this scene by itself. You don't have to watch the entire episode. You know, I think it's within the first 8 to 10 minutes, you know, when Sabrina actually comes in and talks about Calvin briefly before she just starts drinking, and then the conversation shifts to Zach and Aaron and Karen, and then Calvin comes in. But yeah, this was a very well acted scene. I'm glad Calvin stuck it to the sisters. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I mean, the scene itself was what, maybe 4 to 7 minutes, and here I am talking for almost 20 minutes about it. But that just goes to show what a standout scene this was from one of the better episodes of season 3. Okay guys, so it's earlier in the video I mentioned, make sure you take a moment to hit like and subscribe. If you want to donate to the channel, feel free to do so on PayPal or Cash App. And with that being said, I'll catch you in the next video.